Hi, I'm coverkillernation. We review music and albums sometimes based off of pure emotion alone, considering what something makes us feel. When Dream Theater announced the Astonishing, it definitely provided us with a lot of wonderment. Whenever we saw some of the details of the album, seeing there would be a double disc that had 34 tracks on it, that curiosity was certainly piqued even further. But now we have something even greater. We have the first single off of it entitled, quite simply, The Gift of Music. And man, isn't that just a wonderful title? Isn't that a title that just describes what music truly is? But we know that there's a lot more in the works here. This is a huge concept release. There are characters, there are factions, there's a whole world map that's slowly being constructed over on Dream Theater's website. So where does The Gift of Music play in? And what the hell does all this have to do with emotion? So The Gift of Music is a song that's really from its get-go reminds me a little bit of Rush. In fact, I could almost hear James LeBray's vocals on the early portions of The Gift of Music being performed by Geddy Lee. The melody and the overall structure of the song definitely feels like it could support a Rush cover, or at least a Rush theory. It's definitely interesting. It's one that's telling the story of really a world that feels a lot like our own in some ways. In fact, some of the lines almost feel completely mirrored to perhaps 2015 America or 2015 Earth. Nobody has the time for music anymore, and no one seems to care. Now, like every story, this is one that has the turn that there is going to be a savior among all of them, and this really doesn't tell us very much about the overall astonishing storyline that's going to be going on. We really don't have much in the way of introductions aside from what we get loosely through some lyrical allegory. But musically speaking, this is a song that should at least put some people's minds at ease. For being only roughly 4 minutes in length, and for Act 1 to have 20 tracks on it, they're going to have to be shorter songs, granted. This is one that gives you sort of the whole Dream Theater emotional palette as much as they can in one track. The intro showcases that sort of little, that build side that they have, which is a prog rock that completely escalates into a progressive metal tone. It's one that certainly showcases their ability to construct a great and moving melody, only to amplify it up to 11 and bring full out progressive metal out to play. Now, as far as the vocals are concerned, James doesn't necessarily go completely and totally over the top. In fact, for most of this track, he remains in his mid to high mid range, but still showcases his ability to project and amplify. Whenever we get to the first real break of the song where everything tones itself down, it emotionally kind of gives you this picture of a little bit of desolation, or a lot of bad things that feel like they are happening in this portion of the empire. It seems as though this group of individuals, this race of beings, is just not in a good place. Again, eerily reminiscent to the culture that we find ourselves in here in 2015. But then we have this sort of amplification point. We have this elation point, almost as though this song is being sung about the perspective of somebody who is speaking of all the problems that the Empire has, and then speaks of a savior, perhaps one that is that of a legend, either that or somebody that is bound to come in the very near future, and this character is the only one that knows that that's true. Either way, it sets up a magnificent solo. The solo that you hear first before an instrumental breakdown, before we get to the final portion of the song, it's just a very moving passage. It's one that actually can showcase the real, I guess, almost tear-jerking elements of a Dream Theater solo. Petrucci has such a way of emoting through his instrument, and the band is able to really construct right around that, or vice versa, in order to craft a moving passage that feels like it's sort of supplanted traditional music aesthetic. Instead, it's one that feels very much individual and independent by its own right, and it takes you from this feeling of kind of desolation or fear about what's going on in this culture to a little bit of elation and a little bit of hope. It actually supplies you with the element and the idea of hope, that everything may just in fact turn out all right. We get some instrumental chaos at the end, which is certainly part of Dream Theater's staple, but it's very well maintained, and the end portion really supplies and nails the idea down, and it feels like this is going to be one that sort of bridges the gap into the very next track on this disc. But this being track 3 on Act 1, it certainly has the potential to maybe transform itself into something very magnificent, which follows perhaps on track 4 or track 5. It's a passage that feels like it's very much just a moving cog in the wheel of the story of the Astonishing. Emotionally speaking, this song can move some mountains. Dream Theater fans should really not overanalyze this. It's a great track. It's a short one, so of course it might feel a bit underwhelming to a few who are used to longer, more flowing pictures being painted by this band. But whenever you realize that this is just a smaller cog in the greater machine of a 34-track double-disc album, that's whenever you really start to realize that they're able to accomplish a lot in a short period of time with the gift of music. And isn't that just a wonderful, wonderful metaphor once again? Did we learn anything new about the Astonishing? Maybe not too much, just that the music's probably going to be damn good. We know that there's going to be heroes and villains. Once again, another allegory potentially for our society these days, where the heroes and villains of our world decide to go out and do something or cause a little bit of wanton destruction, whereas the rest of us stay inside and cuddle our participation trophies, happy that we have them, wanting to make sure everybody knows that we do. The Astonishing is going to be a great album, and it's going to be an early treat for us, considering it comes the last week of January of 2016. And I want to know what you think about the gift of music, but even more so than that, I want to know what you feel whenever you listen to the gift of music. And for that reason, I've supplied a link to the song in the description box below. I am Cover Killer Nation, and I am stoked for this album, and I hope that you are too. I'll talk to you later.